You're listening to The Briefing, first broadcast on the 14th of August 2025 on Monocle Radio. The Briefing in association with Addis. Hello and welcome to The Briefing, broadcasting live from Studio 1 here at Midori House in London. I'm Chris Chermak. Coming up on today's program.
We'll have a quick second meeting between President Putin and President Zelensky and myself if they'd like to have me there.
Donald Trump gears up for his Alaska summit with Putin, but suggests he will leave an actual ceasefire deal to Ukraine and Zelensky. We'll get the view from Kyiv. After that to India, where the Electoral Commission is facing allegations of vote rigging. We'll also get the view from the International Books Festival in Edinburgh, have a roundup of summer travel news, and it is Thursday, which means the Global Countdown is back once again with Fernando Augusto Pacheco.
Hi Chris, today's Global Countdown is a special one. It's all about Madonna's seminal 1998's Ray of Light and how it influenced this year's summer.
I know what kind of fan of Madonna you are, Fernando. All that right here on The Briefing with me, Chris Chermak. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky may not have been invited to the Alaska summit between Donald Trump and Vladimir Putin, but that has not stopped him from looking for leverage here in Europe. Zelensky was in Berlin yesterday and is right here in London today for a meeting with UK Prime Minister Keir Starmer. And for more on all of this, I'm joined now right here in the studio by Monocle's Julia Jen, who is also recently, Julia, you're just back from Kyiv yourself.
Yes, yeah, I am. And I did a few check-ins with you guys, spoke to you. But yeah, had an amazing time, despite everything, obviously, that's going on over our heads.
There is so much going on.
Yeah.
It's been good to hear from you over there and good to have you right here back in the studio. I wanted to start with yesterday before we get to today, the big virtual meeting. What did you make of it?
I think how desperate the Europeans are. I think there was this real feeling of a kind of cacophony after, as kind of different representatives who were there started to make statements, the French saying one thing, then the Germans saying another thing, then the Italians saying something. And there's this real feeling that it's kind of a club in which you have so many different voices. And, it was described for the Europeans as a last chance saloon. And I think it really showed also how much peril Europe is in as a result of this meeting, how much this really affects Europe. The conversation that's been happening over the course of the last 3 years since the beginning of the full-scale invasion here on the continent is we must support Ukraine, we must send weapons to Ukraine, but why? No one has actually really properly said in Western capitals why so directly to the public. And that's because it directly affects the territorial integrity of the West as well. Russia is a direct threat, and this is what Russia is doing, looking towards NATO. And this is why it matters so much what happens in Alaska tomorrow for the Europeans. But it was reassuring, I guess, psychologically reassuring. I don't know physically if it will actually be reassuring in the end. Trump and Vance's statements afterwards, after the European conversation with the European leaders yesterday on how they will seek to make sure that, the Europeans and the Ukrainians are both involved in ceasefire negotiations with Russia.
And this meeting was organized by Germany's Friedrich Merz. I'm curious what you made of that as well. As you say, there were so many different voices coming out of this, but he was at the heart of it and had quite a long meeting with Zelensky himself. What do we make of that?
Yeah, so last time Zelensky was in Berlin, they discussed how Germany will help Ukraine make their own long-range missiles. And this is something Ukraine has been pushing for now for kind of years, is the ability to access Taurus. It's kind of boring almost to talk about it now because it's been talked about so much.
Ongoing tourist thing.
Totally ongoing, yeah. And so potentially that might have been something they discussed. But I guess Germany as well, historically, Germany is such a pivotal country in terms of what wars kind of going on in Europe and whatever, and Ukrainian future as well, how much Germany has, influenced Ukrainian kind of course of history as well. So I guess it was sort of a very sentimental moment for Ukrainians to see that, Ukraine could go to Germany for support, for help before such a pivotal moment for their country's history.
So there is some return, I guess, to a reliance or an understanding with Germany. And now Zelensky is here in London, which arguably was sort of the original big ally. Certainly in this full-scale invasion, the UK was the first one to really be supportive of Ukraine militarily as well. What do we make of this meeting today?
Again, more psychological stuff going on here. So last time Starmer and Zelensky met, there was this photo shoot, a loving photo shoot, the sort of type that Macron likes to do with world leaders, of Zelensky and Starmer walking around the gardens, somewhere in London, I'm assuming, in Downing Street, walking through the rose bushes, etc. And that was a real moment of of warmth for Ukrainians. Obviously, we're talking about psychologically, this sort of is some sort of helps alleviate the kind of stress and the fear. I think what they will be talking about, though, is sanctions. So Starmer has said, and other European leaders have said, they are ready to put sanctions, ramp up sanctions on Russia, something they said they were ready to do before. But I really think, this is a kind of pivotal moment for them. Specifically, what Britain has been leading on is shadow fleet sanctions. So the shadow fleet of oil and gas that Russia uses to transport their kind of main products for export around the world with the ability to evade sanctions. And Britain's really been leading on these types of sanctions. So I guess this is something they're really going to be hashing out today. What is the plan if that press conference with Trump and Putin goes really south tomorrow, which it really very well may be? What's their plan of action? What's the statement they put out? What kind of sanctions do they immediately hit Russia with? And, the channel between Britain and France, that's a major crossing point for these shadow fleet tankers full of this sanctioned Russian produce that's going out to India, China, etc. So Britain really has a lot of sway there.
And Julie, you speak there of the sanctions. We've talked about the symbolism, the psychology of all of this ahead of what is going to be, essentially talk tomorrow. But what is the situation on the front line at the moment? If you could give us an update from that as well. We do understand that Russia is trying, certainly, to make inroads, perhaps also ahead of this summit.
Yeah, absolutely. We had, in the last 24 hours, Russia take quite a significant, 10 kilometres at least. It's very much in flux. The front line is not one clear line, which is what makes it so difficult. You've had Russian soldiers going into Ukrainian villages and towns in civilian dress or even in Ukrainian army dress. And so they're shifting the front line in a way. We've had elderly residents of these towns, pre-front towns, pointing Ukrainian drones and saying there's a Russian soldier in that house pretending to be a civilian. So it's very much in flux. The Russians are throwing everything they can. They're bombarding Ukrainian towns and villages to kind of make way for their push forward, to drive civilians out, to drive kind of the Ukrainian army out, throwing bombs, rockets, missiles, drones at these areas. And they've taken, a significant amount of land. And I think that's really nerve-wracking for Ukrainians, because Ukrainians have been used to this kind of inching slowly forward, 1 kilometre, 1, metre or something per day. And suddenly they're just made forward, 10 kilometres in the east of Ukraine, in the Donbass region.
Julie, I'm sure we'll have more from you going forward as Zelensky is potentially involved in future talks on all of this. Monocle's Julia Jen, thank you very much for joining us for the moment. And now here's Tom Webb with the day's other news headlines.
Thanks, Chris. Over 100 foreign aid groups have criticised the Israeli government for using a new regulation to prevent them from bringing much-needed humanitarian aid into the devastated Gaza Strip. 8 more people, including 3 children, have died of starvation and malnutrition in Gaza in the past 24 hours. The World Expo in Osaka has been disrupted by a subway system malfunction, leaving many people stranded inside the venue overnight. A power failure hit the metro line, which is the only direct train link from the city centre to the expo site on an artificial island. The disruption came during extreme heat on a day where 36 people were taken to hospital due to suspected heat stroke. Struggling flag carrier Garuda Indonesia is to double its fleet of passenger planes by 2029. It's believed that Boeing will manufacture many of these planes after Indonesia agreed to procure 50 Boeing aircraft during tariff negotiations with the US. Total domestic and international routes will increase from 100 from 67 in the next 4 years, with Garuda targeting the Asia-Pacific and Middle East. Those are the day's headlines. Back to you, Chris.
Thanks very much, Tom. India's Narendra Modi has had a challenging week on the international stage, with the US threatening to enforce a punitive round of tariffs. And at home, the Electoral Commission is facing allegations of vote theft in his party's favour during the 2024 elections. Those were the elections where Modi lost his absolute majority but did manage to cling on to power through a coalition with allies. Opposition leaders are alleging that even that victory may have been misplaced. Well, I'm joined now by Maya Sharma, an independent journalist, writer and teacher based in Bangalore. Maya, good to have you back on the show. I understand that there was even a brief arrest of opposition leaders as they tried to bring attention to this on Monday. How has this all come about?
Well, it's really been a dramatic time. Essentially, the opposition is saying that the Election Commission of India, the body which looks after India's massive election process, they say that the Election Commission, the EC, is actually working on behalf of the BJP to give benefit to BJP by allowing manipulation or in fact manipulating electoral voter rolls. That's the basic thing. The opposition says the EC, instead of being a neutral election body, is actually working on behalf of the BJP. The backdrop for this, well, of course, it's in the context of upcoming elections in Bihar, a massive state in North India. The elections are due around November. And what is being undertaken there is a special intensive revision of electoral rolls, which is causing quite a lot of backlash. 6.5 million voters' names have been removed from that list. The Election Commission says it's all legitimate, that these are voters who have died or they're duplicate names or they've migrated. But many of the people whose names are missing are saying, we are still here. We need to vote. But more recently than that, Rahul Gandhi has actually alleged massive malpractice in the Mahadevapura constituency in Bangalore, where I am. That was part of the Bangalore Central Lok Sabha or parliamentary seat. And the Congress is alleging, through Rahul Gandhi, who produced what he said was proof, they are alleging that 100,000 extra voters were somehow introduced into Mahadevapura. Now, this seat, the Bangalore Central seat, was won by the BJP with a margin less than 100,000. And the Congress is saying that this is just one example where manipulation of voters' lists have actually allowed the BJP to win. And they say there are many more seats across the country in which this has happened.
Maya, can you give us some context for all of that? Because I'm curious, India has been a democracy for a long time. How common or not is it for these kinds of grave allegations to be made against an electoral commission?
Well, the allegations against the Electoral Commission have been picking up steam. There was a time in the 90s when it was headed by T.N. Sheshan, a man who kind of came in and cleaned the huge Indian stables of the elections in India. He was considered to be an absolutely upright person who managed to clean this out. But of late, the allegations against the Election Commission have risen. Now, of course, you must understand that India's election process is unbelievably mind-bogglingly massive. We're looking at almost 1 billion registered voters, well over 900 million registered voters. So the fact that the challenge of getting all of their names correct, all of their photos correct, all of their IDs correct, is an unbelievably massive process. And, well, it's probably human to expect some mistakes, to maybe have a name misspelt or an address wrong. But the scale of what is being alleged in Bihar and also what has happened here in Bangalore, the scale of it is a little disturbing. We're talking about people who have lived and voted in the same place for years, suddenly finding their names missing. And the Congress is actually saying it's been done by introducing fake voters who don't exist, fake addresses, up to 80 people supposedly registered at one single address. These are very serious allegations being made this time. And the Election Commission, instead of actually answering this, is getting a little bit aggressive with Rahul Gandhi and telling him to sign an affidavit, to bring forward and take it under oath, to make these allegations under oath and provide proof. They actually said, they used the term today, don't use these dirty phrases or these dirty words, give proof instead. And interestingly, the BJP is coming out and defending the Election Commission.
Well, we'll have to see how this continues also with those elections going forward. Maya Sharma, that's all the time we have for now. Thanks very much for joining us. Maya Sharma, journalist in Bangalore. You're listening to The Briefing on Monocle Radio. You are back with The Briefing. I'm Chris Chermak. Now, many people will know Edinburgh in August for its Fringe Festival, but in that name lies the fact that it is hardly the only festival in the Scottish capital. This year's edition of the Edinburgh International Book Festival began last weekend and runs until the 24th of August. Georgina Godwin, Monocle Radio's books editor and presenter of Meet the Writers, is there. Georgina, good afternoon to the north.
Hello. It's odd, obviously, always connecting with the studio when I'm far away, but it's lovely to hear your voice from this incredibly manic city. As you say, Chris, it's hardly the only festival going on. There's art, there's theatre, there's the Fringe, there's film. I mean, it's just manic. This place is so buzzing with life. It's extraordinary.
It is incredible what happens to Edinburgh in August. But give us a sense, Georgina, of the one that you are there for primarily, the Edinburgh International Book Festival. Tell us about the history and the scale amid everything else.
So it began in 1983, and since then it's welcomed millions of visitors annually. And it's really for sort of conversations with the world's greatest and most exciting emerging writers and thinkers and artists and performers. I believe there's something like close to 700 events featuring over 640 writers from 35 countries across 6 continents. And these are big prize winners. They're Nobel Peace Prize winners. They're Booker winners. They're all sorts of people like that. And then, of course, all the very exciting new emerging talent as well.
And Georgina, you are a regular at book festivals around the world, as our listeners will probably know as well. But why do these book festivals matter?
You know, I mean, they matter for many, many ways, in many ways. But one of the reasons they matter for me is Meet the Writers is always done in person. I want to stare into the whites of their eyes. And sometimes they can't get to London, so I go to them. And it's so exciting to be in the room where these conversations happen, and also outside the room, because the sort of green room aspect and all of that really matters too. Last night I had dinner with Susan Choi, who's just been nominated for the Booker Prize, and Barbara Demick, who wrote that wonderful book on North Korea, Nothing to Envy Here. So, I mean, you know, there's so much that goes on beyond what happens on stage. But I actually think one of the best people to explain this is Jenny Niven. So she's the CEO and artistic director of Edinburgh International Book Festival. So here's what she told me earlier.
I think for me, the idea of being able to have long-form, nuanced, interesting conversation should be a bit of an act of hope, an act of resilience, something that propels the conversation forward. And while we could diagnose everything that is wrong and everything that is broken right now, I would also like the work that we are doing to perhaps suggest some ways that might be hopeful and how we can repair things. So we're using the idea of repair just really as a framing to look at all sorts of different issues across the political sphere, mental health and well-being, the environment and sustainability is a huge part of that, and our relationship to the natural world, and social cohesion. So it's a useful kind of baggy, expansive sort of idea that allows us to do a lot of interesting, thought-provoking discussion under that.
For listeners who haven't been to Edinburgh, can you just position it in the kind of global landscape of literary events?
Sure. It's 43 years old, I think, this year. So it's one of the older ones. It ran every second year for its first 10 years or so of existence and now runs annually. Crucially, it runs right in the middle of all of the Edinburgh festivals, of which there are 9 concurrently in August. So the International Festival, Jazz and Blues, Comedy, TV, Film. So it's really very much of its context. And I think that's really important. It's quite different from if there's so many beautiful destination festivals, but we're a little bit different because of everything else that's happening. But we are, at one time we were the biggest. I don't know what metrics are important to people. I don't think that's necessarily specifically the most interesting thing about Edinburgh. But we do still have, as you say, 700 writers that are coming to us. 35 countries, I think, writers are coming from. And last year, in our streaming and the amount of work that we put online that then goes out around the world, I think we reached 65 countries through that work as well. So the reach is pretty extensive.
That's extraordinary. So, of course, if people go to the book festival, they can then be dipping in and out of the film festival, the comedy festival, the Fringe festival. I mean, it's just such a packed cultural time. But your programme itself is incredibly rich. Brilliant fiction, new world orders, lots of information, how to live a meaningful life. I love the idea of that. Tell us about the front list.
Sure. So the other thing that I think is distinctive about us too is that we actually have one physical location where everything happens, which allows us to create that real kind of traditional festival feeling of having tents and having a Spiegel tent and being kind of a captive audience in a way, even in amongst all that hustle and bustle. So most of the events that we run take place at the Edinburgh Futures Institute, which has really great, very accessible, kind of well-teched interior spaces, but also courtyard space that allows us to have tents and things. And right next to our venue is the beautiful McEwan Hall, which is part of the Edinburgh University real estate. And it's beautiful. It's where they have all the graduations at the end of the university year, seats 1,000 people. And we're partnering with Underbelly because typically they use that as a fringe venue and they run that venue. But we're working in partnership with them to run 15 really large-scale events every day during our festival, one every day for the 15 days. And so far, so that our writers in that list are amazing. We have Chimamanda Ngozi Adichie, we have Ta-Nehisi Coates, we have Anne Applebaum and Edward Wong, who are reporting from the front lines of the American Trump administration, which is a fascinating topic right now. Nicola Sturgeon will be launching her political memoir that day in the middle of the festival. Ian McEwan, it's one of those programmes that you're like, oh, Ian McEwan is one of the leading lights of UK fiction. So it's really terrific. But critically, it's also bringing in really a new audience for the book festival. So superstar footballer Ali McCoist is in there as well. His book is about being on the road with a Tartan army. And everybody in Scotland knows who Super Ali is. And also Ruth Jones, who wrote the Gavin and Stacey series as well. So, and we can see from our ticket buying patterns already, because that programme's been out for a couple of months already, that it's bringing new audiences who read all the time but don't necessarily come to book events. And that's a really vital part of what we're trying to do.
Georgina, that explains some of the book festival, its magic, why it matters. What are you up to over there over the next couple of days or so?
Right. So immediately after this, I'm going off to interview Ewan Morrison. He's a Scottish writer, won many awards for his books. His latest book is called For Emma, and it's kind of science fiction, but not really, because, of course, AI, which is what it's about, has become so close to our reality now. So that's a conversation I'm really looking forward to. Then the fabulous novelist Tessa Hadley tomorrow. And then I crown it all off with an enormous event for sort of Edinburgh's homeboy, if you like, Alexander McCall Smith, who people will know from the Best Ladies Detective Agency and the 44 Scotland series. Huge writer. It's his hometown. There's going to be a big crowd for that. And so those are my onstage sessions. I'm also supporting my brother, who's here talking about his book, Exit Wounds. And then we're just getting into the festival. We've booked a few extra days here so we can really explore not only the books, but the comedy and the art and everything else. I am just honestly, Chris, in cultural heaven.
And I am very jealous. Monocle presenter Georgina Godwin, thank you very much for joining us. The latest edition of Meet the Writers did go online today. By the way, you can hear more from Jenny Niven, also from festival directors in other places, Auckland, Adelaide, Byron Bay, Sydney and Dubai. You're listening to The Briefing on Monocle Radio. This is The Briefing, and it's time now for a roundup of summer travel trends, because it is summer and everyone here in Europe, at least, is travelling, or seems to be, except for Monocle's senior producer, Laura Kramer, who joins me now right here in the studio. Are we jealous?
Yes, Chris, I think we are, but we are we're waiting for our time. It's coming soon, I think.
We are biding our time, and in the meantime, you have yourself taken a break, which has made you quite excited, feeling good this week. What were you up to?
Yes, I treated myself to a staycation. Now, we are going away in September, but I've been getting a little bit impatient to do something before then. So I stayed at the Marylebone Hotel this week, and it was such a reset. I can't recommend this enough. It kind of felt like, I will say, I was transported to the south of France, because this summer they have this partnership they did with the rosé brand Maison Mirabeau at the hotel's brasserie. So it's like this Provence on the terrace experience. You know, Chris, I clearly had to go for that. You know, I like my rosé, so I had some champagne on the terrace, lots of rosé and seafood from the special menu. And the next day I had the easiest commute imaginable to Midori House, because it's a very civilized, like 7-minute walk. Okay, 10 with a stopover at the Monocle Cafe for a latte. But it was just so nice. It really set me up for the rest of the week, I think.
Very nice. You're bringing southern France to London, so that helps, I'm sure. But how do you try and kind of have vacation vibes when you're doing a staycation?
Well, I think I treated it like a normal holiday, which I do this on every holiday, Chris, which I bring my gym gear and I'm like, oh yeah, I'm going to work out while I'm here. It never happens. They do have a third space for people who are staying at the hotel there at the Marylebone. Shameless plug here. We have interviewed the CEO of Third Space on The Entrepreneurs, yes, earlier in the year. But I brought along my stuff thinking I'm a different person when I'm on holiday at this hotel. I will totally work out before I go to work. No, you never do it, do you?
So you're making it a vacation by doing the things that you think you're going to do on vacation and then don't actually do. That's a good way to keep the vacation vibes.
Absolutely.
Is this something we're seeing as more of a trend, people staying in the cities they're in, kind of treating their own cities as a place for vacations?
Yeah, I think so. People in general are being more purposeful right now with travel. They're embracing a full experience of it. So, as you said earlier, we are in the high season and many of our colleagues are away. Offices are operating on a much smaller capacity as teams are gone. And those of us who are here are eagerly awaiting our turn. And I think a charming stay in your own city can do wonders and help you also rethink the city. There is a lot of power in changing your environment, and your schedule is packed. You can't hop on a plane to go away, but you can change the scenery, and it's a great way to recalibrate. My suggestion, though, is to take the headphones out and do it properly. Pay attention, look for something you're not regularly seeing, and head to the bar, meet the locals, because there are people there who, for them, it is not their city, and you get to interact and have these wonderful discussions, meet the people, hear the team, see what's happening.
There is a nice aspect to that. I mean, I went to Buckingham Palace over the weekend just to do like the tourist thing here in London, so that is another way to sort of do staycations. But Laura, beyond the staycation, tell us, are there other travel trends you've been spotting this summer? Coolcations
are still absolutely a thing. And also off-the-beaten-track locations are big, and cities are aware of the demand. I think the fear for most of us, when we are going away, is we'll be surrounded by people from the country that we are trying to take a break from. We are going to Spain soon, and I think I was sent a reel of people at the biggest carvery in Spain. I was like, wait a minute. I don't want to go to a carvery in Spain. Thank you very much. Show me where the tapas are. But we know people are looking for unique, less crowded experiences, and they want to be the curators. They want to be the person who tells you about the hidden spots and the gems, to introduce you to a new hotel in a great location. So they're scouting out places where there's a sense of exploring. I've been hearing a lot of people actually talking about Albania. The Balkans in general are getting very big. And, as I said, cities are catching on. There is a big rush to build landmark attractions to lure people away from the capitals. And I think sometimes in those attempts, there can be a disconnect between the idea and the execution. So there's a South Korean port city that's attempted to build such an attraction, and it's now faced public backlash. They've made a quote-unquote big tree observation tower that's almost 50 meters tall. This is in Chunwon. And it is allegedly inspired by the super trees in Singapore, which of course have drawn millions of visitors. It's a costly project. It's to the tune of around 20 million euros. And unfortunately, it doesn't exactly look like the image that they had rendered, that they had worked to. And residents are so underwhelmed, the city officials have decided not to charge an entry fee now when the tower begins official operations on October 1st. So it kind of reminds me a little bit of, do you remember from 3 years ago, the Marble Arch Mound here in London?
I do remember the Marble Arch mounds. I wish I could kind of forget it. Yeah, that would be a good example of that kind of thing. Cities do try sometimes, and sometimes they fail. Laura Kramer, Monocle Radio's senior producer, thank you very much for joining us. This is The Briefing. That jingle can only mean one thing. Finally, on today's show, joining me for this week's Global Countdown is, as always, Monocle's senior correspondent, musical curator, Fernando Augusto Pacheco. And Fernando, you're going to have to explain this one a little bit. What exactly are we doing?
It's my summer vibe of 2025, and I will explain to you in detail.
It's summer vibe with a twist.
Of course, there's a twist. And it feels very organic. Madonna's seminal 1998 album, Ray of Light, is one of my favorites, has always been. But for some reason, a lot of the...
Your favorites within the favorite. Like, Madonna is your favorite, and so this is your favorite within that.
Absolutely. And that album has been influencing young pop stars this year. It's incredible, the influence. So there's been write-ups at the BBC, at Pitchfork, and many other media outlets. It's something that we've been noticing, and it's just organic. Why people didn't pick up perhaps Madonna's 2000 music or 2005's Confessions on a Dance Floor. No, they are going back to the trip-hop sounds, a little bit spiritual, a little bit of electronica from Ray of Light. So it's quite an interesting. So I selected 5 tracks that represent this mood. Sometimes they're old, sometimes they're new. Let's see where my head will take you.
You've gone for 2025. You've gone wherever your heart takes you.
Exactly. We're going to start in 2000. I think you will remember this, Chris, because it was a number 1. It was about a British group called All Saints. Where are All Saints, by the way?
I don't know. Yes, maybe they're due for one of those Where Are They Now documentaries.
Well, here they are. If you're listening to this on the Global Countdown, let's listen to Pure Shores, which was the soundtrack for The Beach with Leonardo DiCaprio. That was produced by William Orbit, the same producer of Ray of Light as well, 2 years later.
I was going to say, I do remember that very well, that song from All Saints, but 2 years later, does that count as being inspired a whole bunch after the album came out?
Well, let's wait for number 4, Chris. This was just a little taster.
Forward. This is the initial taster. So what you're really showing here is how from 1998 onwards, Madonna just continues to inspire.
We are in 2025, do not worry. We have Addison Rae here, which for me has been one of the biggest surprises of the year. She started her career on TikTok doing who knows what. I was not a big follower of Addison Rae on TikTok, but I am a music follower now. She released her debut album this year, Addison. What a fantastic album. I mean, and her influences are so vast. I'm going to play you a song that if you close your eyes, you could imagine a little bit of Björk as well, perhaps. I know some people might disagree with me on that one, but this is number 4, Addison Rae, Headphones On.
So Björk meets Madonna. Would Addison Rae be happy with that description?
I think she'd be so happy, and clearly that was her inspiration. There's a certain touch of lushness as well to the sounds. I think so far that's been the kind of the common thread from the songs I've shown you so far. We're going back now.
Madonna has lushness. Is that the way to describe it?
I think she does.
Lushness.
I think she does. And sorry, it's been a bit of a crazy but very beautiful Global Countdown, I have to say.
I mean, we're only 2 in.
Sorry, I'm getting
so excited, Fernando.
Fernando, calm down.
It's been a wonderful countdown so far. We have 3 more to go. What's at number 3?
And number 3, we're going back to 2003. And that's when Britney Spears became an adult. And clearly that song was also influenced by the sounds of Ray of Light. It's sexy, it is sophisticated, has clever lyrics. One of them is, monogamy is the way to go. Just put your lips together and blow. Shall we have a listen so you can feel it a little bit? Britney Spears, Breathe on Me. A B cut from Britney. That's what we needed.
This is how far you're going. You're going to the B cuts of Britney to bring out those Madonna influences wherever they may be.
I must do a Spotify playlist with this Ray of Light vibes because there are clearly more than 5. But as I said, it's just a taster.
That did take us back all the way again, early 2000s. We've had All Saints and Britney. I mean, where do we go from there?
We're going back to 2025.
Okay.
So
You're doing this
here.
kind of flipping
Yeah,
back
I'm flipping.
to the future
There are no
vibe.
rules here, Chris. It's FKA Twigs and her album Il Sexual. Honestly, for me, it's the album of the year so far. Of course, we're still in August, but the album is... It's an ode to the dance floor. It's an ode to desire as well. And I think the track we're going to play, honestly, could have been on the Ray of Light album. It's one of my favorites from Il Sexual. FKA Twigs, Girl Feels Good.
When a girl feels good, you know. When a girl feels good, you know. When a girl feels good, she's gonna keep you around. When a girl feels good, you know.
What do you feel,
I'll
Chris?
give you that one, Fernando. That one, more than any of the others, I think has those Ray of Light vibes. Like, you can absolutely just assume that Madonna was singing that one.
Are you enjoying the vibes here? The trip-hop inspired, the electronica?
I'm getting into the vibes. I'm enjoying those sort of early 2000s. That definitely takes me back as well. Yeah, there's something to that. It's funny how you have flipped. You've just done 2025 and early 2000s. So there was like a dearth in the middle for about 20 years, and now she's back.
That's the period where people had bad taste, basically. I'm
20
joking.
years of bad taste.
20 years of bad taste. I'm kind of joking, okay, listeners? Don't worry about it. And number one, I'm sorry, we have to play a track from Ray of Light. I didn't choose the obvious one, though. I could have chosen Ray of Light. I could have chosen Frozen. I could have chosen The Power of Goodbye. Nothing Really Matters. But I did not.
Wow. All of those that you didn't choose. You're just trying to keep our listeners guessing, aren't you? Because you need to show your sort of Madonna specialty knowledge here.
Yeah, you're here to listen to the B-cuts. I mean, it's not quite a B-cut because it's a fairly known track. This is Drowned World, Substitute for Love by Madonna's from her Ray of Light album, the seminal Ray of Light album from 1998.
No Ferris wheel, no heart to steal, no laughter in the dark. No one night stand, no far off man, no fire that I can spark.
It's all about the emptiness of fame, Chris. So you can dance and be philosophical at the same time.
Fernando, what would you do if you ever got the chance to interview Madonna?
Oh, I have to say I did try, Chris. I did get replies, you know. I think I'm perhaps getting close.
Are we getting closer to that moment?
I hope so.
Would you sort of faint if she walked into the studio?
No, but I would be fairly emotional, I have to say. And the fact I'm Brazilian, I know she loves Brazil. She was, as you know, in Copacabana last year, one of her biggest concerts of her career. I know she has an affinity to the country, so that could help me.
Hope stays alive. Fernando Augusto Pacheco, thank you very much for joining us. And that's all the time we have for this edition of The Briefing. It was produced by Tom Webb. Our researcher was Henry King, and our studio manager was Steph Chungu. The Briefing is back tomorrow at the same time. I'm Chris Chermak. Goodbye, and thanks for listening.